It was late in the afternoon when I left campus for the long drive home. One of those cool West Virginia days where the sky felt heavy and low, like it could rain at any second. The kind of weather that makes the world feel quieter, like everything's just waiting for something to happen. I had been driving for maybe an hour, winding through the hills. No real traffic out here, just stretches of road that seemed to go on forever. When I spotted her, a woman walking along the shoulder, maybe mid-30s, dark hair pulled back, wearing jeans and a jacket, and carrying this big tan tote bag that looked heavy. No phone in her hand, no umbrella, nothing. I slowed as I passed her, because it's hard not to at least check if someone's okay when they're out here, miles from anything. She glanced up and gave this small, almost relieved wave. I pulled over a little ways ahead. She jogged up to the car, breathing a little hard, and leaned toward the passenger side window. "Sorry to bother you," she said. "My car broke down a few miles back. No signal out here. Can you give me a ride to the next town?" I hesitated for just a second. I mean, picking up strangers isn't something I usually do, but she didn't seem threatening. And out here, if you didn't help people, they might be stuck for hours. So I unlocked the door. She slid in, setting the tote bag on her lap like she didn't want it touching the floor. It gave a soft, dull thud as it settled, and I noticed how she kept her arm draped over it, like someone guarding a purse on a crowded bus. We started driving. She told me her name, said she lived about 30 minutes in the same direction I was going. Her voice was calm, but every now and then she'd glance in the side mirror, as if checking if someone was behind us. I tried to make small talk, asked where she worked, if she needed to call a tow truck. She gave short answers, not rude, just distracted, her hand never leaving that bag. About half an hour in, we came up on a little gas station, the kind with a single pump and a flickering open sign. I told her I was going to stop for a drink and to stretch my legs. She didn't protest, just nodded and kept her eyes on the dashboard. I went inside. It was one of those tiny shops with dusty shelves and the faint smell of motor oil. Grabbed a bottle of water and walked back toward the car. When I opened the door, she looked up fast, her eyes wide like I'd startled her. "Drive," she said, almost a whisper. I froze, half in, half out of the seat. "Just drive, please," she said again, louder this time, her hands gripping that tote bag tighter. Something in her tone made my stomach knot. I started the car and pulled back onto the road. "Is everything okay?" I asked. She shook her head, staring straight ahead. "I'll explain later, just keep going." We drove in tense silence, her breathing shallow, my mind racing with a dozen questions. And that's when I saw it. In the rearview mirror, a police cruiser easing up behind us. The light at the next intersection turned red. I slowed to a stop. The cruiser rolled up close, and a quick flash of red and blue lights filled the car. She muttered something under her breath, then turned to me. "Don't say anything." Before I could respond, the officers were already at my window. "Afternoon," one of them said, leaning down. "License and registration." I handed them over. The other officer walked around to the passenger side, asking her to step out. Her voice trembled as she asked why, but they were firm, and after a long moment, she opened the door, still clutching the tote bag. "Ma'am, can you set that down?" She hesitated, then slowly placed it on the hood of the car. One officer unzipped it. I expected to see clothes, maybe some groceries. Instead, There were rows of prescription bottles, all with different names, and a small black handgun resting on top. I remember feeling this cold wave wash over me, like my body realized the danger before my brain did. The officer's expression didn't change, but his voice was sharper when he told her to turn around, cuffing her hands behind her back. She didn't resist, didn't even look at me, just stood there as they led her to the cruiser, leaving me standing by my car, heart pounding, trying to process what had just happened. One officer came back over, told me they'd been looking for her since that morning, said she was suspected of breaking into a pharmacy 2 counties over, that the gun was loaded, and she'd already evaded 1 traffic stop earlier in the day. I asked if I was in trouble. He shook his head, said I was free to go, but the way he looked at me, like he was still deciding whether I was part of it or not, that look stuck with me the whole drive home. For the rest of the trip, I kept replaying everything, the way she guarded that bag, the glances in the mirror, her urgency after I came back from the store. It was like pieces of a puzzle I didn't want to finish. By the time I pulled into my driveway, the sun was setting, the air cool and still, but I couldn't shake the thought. If I hadn't stopped for a drink, if I hadn't gotten back in the car when she told me to drive, I might not have been stopped at all, and who knows where we would have ended up. That night I lay in bed, listening to every creak of the house, thinking about how easily I'd let her in, how I'd been part of her escape without even realizing it, and how, for a brief moment, my life had been tangled with hers, all because I saw someone walking on the side of the road, carrying a bag I'll never forget. It was late, way past midnight, and I was rolling through Iowa, headlights cutting through the foggy darkness, the highway nearly empty except for the occasional semi-rumbling past. And I had been driving for hours without a real break, so I decided to pull into a rest area to stretch my legs, grab a drink, and clear my head a little. The rest area was quiet, just a few cars parked here and there, a truck or two, and the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. I stepped out, feeling the cold night air hit me like a wall, and that's when I noticed him, sitting on the curb near the entrance. A young guy, probably in his early 20s, a backpack slung over his shoulder, looking like he had been waiting there a while. He caught my eye, waved me over a little, and said, "Trying to get to Des Moines. Any chance you're heading that way?" I hesitated for a moment. It's not the safest thing to pick up strangers, especially at night, but something about him seemed harmless. Maybe it was the way he smiled, nervous but friendly, and I figured I'd at least give him a lift a few miles down the road. I said, "Sure," unlocking the passenger side. "Hop in." He thanked me and climbed in, and we started down the highway. At first, it was just small talk, nothing heavy, just the kind of chatter you have to fill the silence when driving alone at night. He told me he did odd jobs here and there, painting, moving furniture, anything that could keep him on the move. He laughed easy, lighthearted, and it almost made me relax a little, like this wasn't going to be a mistake. But then the questions started to get a little strange, a little too detailed. "So, you drive these routes a lot?" he asked casually, eyes on the road ahead. "Yeah," I said. "Been doing it for years. Mostly solo runs." "Solo? Huh, so you don't usually have a partner?" "Nope," I said, a little cautious now, gripping the wheel tighter. He leaned back, looking thoughtful, like he wasn't even listening to my answer. But then the questions kept coming. "How often do you stop? At gas stations? Motels? Do you stick to the highways or take the back roads sometimes?" I laughed nervously. You really like to know everyone's business?" He smiled, shrugged, said nothing more, but there was something in his gaze, something sharp, watching. I tried to push it out of my mind, thinking I was just being paranoid, and we drove on, the hum of the tires and the engine filling the silence. Eventually, I pulled into a gas station, the light spilling over the pumps like a spotlight in the night. I told him I needed a coffee and a quick snack, and he nodded, saying he'd just wait outside. I grabbed my cup and started back toward the truck, and that's when I saw him, on the payphone by the corner, whispering low, serious, his words just audible enough to make my stomach drop. He was describing my truck, the make, the color, the license plate, every detail. I froze, staring through the window, realizing immediately what was happening. He had been watching me, listening to me, scouting me for something, maybe a robbery, maybe worse. The casual friendliness, the jokes, the easy laughter, all of it was a front. I didn't know how long he had been planning this, or if he had done it to other truckers, but now the air in the cab felt thick, heavy, and I could barely breathe. I grabbed my coffee, but I didn't even want to sip it, and I got back behind the wheel, trying to act normal. He climbed in without a word, sliding into the seat like nothing had happened. But the atmosphere had changed. The easy chatter was gone, replaced with a tense silence that pressed down on both of us. I kept my eyes on the road, glancing at him occasionally, watching his face in the rearview mirror. He stared straight ahead, quiet, calm, like nothing mattered, but I could feel the tension radiating from him. Every exit I passed, every rest area, every truck stop, I started planning. If he made a move, I needed to be ready. I kept my phone in my lap, fingers brushing the numbers of 911, but I didn't want to make a scene yet, not until I was sure of what he was planning. We drove on for what felt like hours, the silence stretching longer with every mile. I tried to make small talk again, soft, careful, asking about his work, his family, anything that could break the tension, but he answered in one-word replies, still watching the road ahead like he was waiting for something or planning it. Eventually, we came to another gas station, a tiny, run-down place with a flickering sign. I told him I needed to fill up and grab another coffee, and he said he'd wait outside again. My heart pounded as I stepped out, scanning the lot for anything unusual. He stayed by the truck, leaning against the side, watching me as I pumped gas. When I turned back to the cab, he was still sitting there, quiet, eyes fixed on me, and I realized I didn't know what he was capable of. The way he had described my truck on the payphone, the way he had watched me the whole drive, it wasn't just curiosity. He had been studying me, learning my habits, figuring out the best moment to strike. I tried to think like him, trying to predict what he would do, and my stomach sank with the realization that I had no idea. I felt trapped, like the miles of empty highway stretched into a cage, and I had a dangerous stranger in my passenger seat. I got back in, pretending nothing had happened, and we continued. The hum of the tires on asphalt was deafening in the silence, my hands gripping the wheel so tight they ached. He didn't say a word, didn't even glance at me, and I kept my eyes forward, heart hammering, imagining all the scenarios where this could go wrong. At one point, he reached into his backpack, and I tensed immediately, but he only pulled out a water bottle, unscrewed it, and took a long drink. Still, every movement was calculated, deliberate, and I felt every second like it was stretching into eternity. I tried to calm myself, telling myself that maybe he wouldn't do anything, that maybe he was just lost, just young, just desperate. But the memory of the payphone, of his voice whispering about my truck, wouldn't leave me. I couldn't shake it. Hours passed like that, every mile building the tension, until finally I reached the outskirts of Des Moines. I had a plan in my head, a careful plan to get him out of my cab safely. I told him, "You said you wanted to get to Des Moines. This is as far as I go tonight. There's a bus station up ahead. You can get a ride from there." He didn't protest, didn't argue, just nodded slowly, like he had been expecting it all along. We pulled up to the station, and I parked. I kept my eyes on him, ready for any sudden movement, but he climbed out of the cab without a word, slinging his backpack over his shoulder. As he walked away into the shadows, I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the night air. I didn't watch him leave completely, didn't follow him with my eyes, just started the engine and drove off, hands trembling, stomach still tight with fear. Even now, thinking back, I can't shake the feeling that he was always watching, always calculating, and maybe he still is, somewhere out there, waiting for the next truck, the next lone driver. It's been months since that night, but every time I stop at a rest area, even in broad daylight, I check every corner, every shadow, and I can feel my pulse spike like I did back then. I don't know if he ever followed through, or if he was just testing, just scouting, but I know one thing: that ride, that night, changed the way I see the road forever, and I'll never forget the way he looked at me, calm, quiet, and knowing. So if you're ever driving alone late at night, and you see someone on the side of the road, be careful. Some smiles hide danger, and some rides aren't as simple as they seem.